think last night's performance with Porter vs Crawford shows why Terrence Crawford is my favourite fighter in the sport. The reason why he's my favourite fighter is because I mentioned it in my last video when I gave the post-fight review when it comes to the Crawford vs Porter fight. The guy can literally do everything. Like there's nothing that he cannot do, Crawford. I mean, he's got the... If you look at most fighters, like for example, the likes of Pacquiao, the likes of Floyd Mayweather, a lot of times their fights go a similar way. Like when they were in their prime, the fight went a similar way. Like if you look at Mayweather, for example, it was quite reminiscent that he would just whitewash his opponent. That's basically what he would do. I mean, vintage Mayweather was him just whitewashing his opponents and just making them miss, making them look silly, making them look stupid in there, but then just finding a way to actually win and take as minimal damage as possible. Pacquiao was a swarmer who used to throw so many punches that it would be overwhelming for his opponent to actually know what he's going to do next and constantly get dazzled, and he would do loads of fancy footwork and move around his opponents. When you see Terrence Crawford fight, yeah, generally speaking, he does have his own style, but you can't really predict what he's going to do next, and that's what you can see it from a fan perspective. They can't figure out, like, is he gonna swarm them? Is he gonna fight ambidextrously? Like, is he gonna fight southpaw? Is he gonna fight orthodox? Is he gonna be a pressure fighter? Is he gonna hunt them down? Is he gonna box them? They're trying to figure out what he's gonna do. And as a person that watches boxing, you're also trying to figure out what Crawford is actually doing when he's in there with you. And the crazy thing is, like, I think he's in a point now where he's about to reach his prime. Obviously, he's still undefeated. He's still one of the best fighters in the sport. But don't get it twisted. I think Crawford is right up there as like one of the best fighters that I've ever seen on my generation. I mean, what he's managed to do in his career is incredible, unifying the light welterweight division. But it's not just that, it's the fact that he's stopping his opponents. Like, there's many times when you see a fighter that's at the top of their game, they're just content to just whitewash their opponent. They're content to just like literally just coast and just get a point victory. With Crawford ain't like that. Crawford's trying to stop you. Crawford's trying to hurt you. Crawford's trying to get you out of there. And if you look at his last 12 opponents, he stopped his last 11. I mean, that's an incredible stoppage rate at the highest level, because when you get to the high levels of boxing, it's very difficult to constantly stop your opponents, because your level of opposition is getting higher. As your level of opposition goes higher, your definitely speaking, elite fighters, they've got better defenses, they're less likely to get stopped. Yet Crawford is still stopping all of these dudes that he's fighting. In my opinion, he's definitely a top 3 pound for pound type fighter. Like definitely top 3 pound for pound. I say he's number 3 in my opinion. I have Canelo ahead of him just because his resume is better, and he's younger as well, and he's accomplished a lot, and he's going up more weight classes. But I have Usyk as my number 1. I'm going to make a separate video talking about why I think that. But in my opinion, Crawford is definitely my favourite fighter. I like him more than Canelo. Right now, he's my favourite fighter of this era. I like him a lot more than Canelo. I like him more than Usyk as well, because I feel like with Usyk and Canelo, don't get it twisted, they're giving very incredible performances and they're looking incredible while they're doing what they're doing. But at the same time, I just feel like Crawford goes out of his way to stop his opponents. He's going out of his way to actually hurt them and get him out of there, and I love that. I love that about him. I love the fact that he's trying to stop his opponents. Like, he's not, he could easily just coast to a point victory. He could easily just like take it easy and just like chill. Like, he doesn't need to try to stop his opponent. Yeah, he goes out of his way to do it. He goes out of his way to knock his opponents out when he doesn't have to. He kind of reminds me of a Sugar Ray Leonard in a sense. If you look at Sugar Ray Leonard, many times he had the skill to just chill. Like, he didn't have to stop Davey Boy Green. I mean, he could have just literally just took it easy and just like literally just like had a point victory against him, but he went out of his way to stop his opponents. Like, that's what I loved about Sugar Ray Leonard, that killer instinct. I mean, we're obviously coming off the back end of the Floyd Mayweather era, which was great as well, because we saw a lot of skill, but we didn't see that killer instinct. The killer instinct we saw was from the likes of the Kovalevs of the world, and obviously Pacquiao to some extent. But I kind of miss knockouts, and I feel like Crawford, he brings the best of both worlds. He's got the skill of an elite welterweight. Like, he's a top welterweight talent, but he's also got the killer instinct, and he's trying to stop his opponents, and he's almost trying to get them out of there, and he's been doing it very successfully. So in my opinion, he is definitely one of my favorite fighters in the sport. Not only that, his ambidextrous ability is fun to watch. It's fun to see him like decipher an opponent. When you see him fight, you're seeing a master at work. Like when he sees that certain stance isn't working, like he's not having as much success with his orthodox stance as he is with his southpaw stance, he will switch. And as soon as he switches, you see the opponent just their original game plan doesn't work, and then they're trying to figure it out, like what they're gonna do next with this puzzle. So they try doing a different thing. They try making an adjustment, and then eventually he figures out an adjustment for their adjustment, and then before you know it, he's leveled them up, and he's starting to knock them out like he's been doing recently. I mean, it's incredible to watch him figuring out his opponents, how the best thing to do against the level of opposition that he's been fighting. He keeps trying to figure it out, and I think it's incredible to watch. He's definitely one of my favorite fighters of all time. But he's definitely my favourite fighter of this era. Terrence Crawford is definitely up there as one of my favourite fighters of all time. But he's my favourite fighter of this era because his unique blend of skill and killer instinct is just fun to watch, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just my opinion, and just why I think Terrence Crawford is probably one of the best fighters in the sport today, but also one of the most entertaining. He's got the skills to outbox most of his opponents the way he did with Victor Postol, yet he still goes out of his way to put himself in a firefight and knock his opponent out. I mean, that's what we fans want to watch. We love all that skill, don't get it twisted. There's hardcore boxing purists that love seeing fighters like Floyd Mayweather itch out a decision, but we also want to see knockouts. I mean, that's why we love boxing. We love seeing fights get knocked out. So yeah, with Terrence Crawford, you get the best of both worlds, and I hope he gets that fight against Spence. I'm hoping that he does. So yeah, that's just my opinion why Terrence Crawford is my favourite fighter in the sport. Tell me your opinions on him. And I feel like he's a fighter that he feels like he's a fighter that's from the 80s. Like, he doesn't feel like he's from this era. It feels like he's a fighter that's like part of a bygone era. Like he's like in the same era, like a for example, like a Donald Curry or one of them type of old type fighters, like a Mike McCullum. It feels like he's part of that era. He doesn't feel like he's part of the 2020 like era in terms of his skill level and his killer instinct and his just his mentality, the way he carries himself in the ring. It feels like we're watching a fighter that's like time travelled into the future and has got the same level of skill that he had when he was in the 80s. I mean, that's what it feels like. It feels like we're looking at some type of fighter that's a throwback fighter, a fighter that's willing to fight anyone, and not only that, he's trying to stop everyone. Yeah, so that's just my opinion on Terrence Crawford and why he's one of my favourite fighters in the sport. Tell me your opinion on Terrence Crawford. What do you think about him? Do you think he's legit? I think he's definitely legit. I think he's definitely top 3 pound for pound. I have Canelo ahead of him. Canelo's number 2 in my opinion, and I have Usyk as number 3. Not number 3, number 1. Sorry. I'm gonna make a separate video talking about why I have Usyk as number 1, pound for pound in my opinion. But yeah, that's a topic for another day. But I definitely have, despite the fact that Crawford is my favourite fighter at this point in time, I have to still put Canelo ahead of him just based on his resume and just everything he's been doing, like going up more weight classes. But yeah, Terrence Crawford is definitely one of my favourite fighters of this era, bar none. Tell me what you think below, and like and subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.